For 5 months, I traveled around Asia to discover new places and people, not only to find my own path, but to give a voice to the unknown and discover new tales. This is an unfolding of the stories behind the images. My adventure started with the biggest challenge of them all, adapting to the fast-paced workaholic attitude of the Hong Kong people, whether we spent more time looking at smartphones rather than the world around you. I felt trapped in a place that did not want or need me there. Meanwhile, I was longing to be places where I could feel that my existence mattered. In the middle of the big city chaos, I searched for places where I could clear my mind. The fishermen villages and the religious temples ended up being what kept me sane. I spent my days exploring the rural areas away from the chaotic city. It was peaceful here, and the people expressed the kindness I was longing for. This was a place I could connect to, despite the religious differences. Japan took me by surprise. I was fascinated by how clean and quiet Tokyo was, despite being a big city. Tokyo had combated the challenges of population density even at Shibuya, the world's biggest crossing. We walked in between each other like fitting pieces. The night ended with a bang when I was taken to the future at Tokyo's famous robot restaurant. For 1.5 hours, I was witnessing a show of no comparison. I kept laughing at surprise, not knowing what to think. How could I be able to describe this? It did not seem like it was from this world. The fast bullet train took me to another of Japan's treasures, Kyoto, and I had the time to refresh my mind after yesterday's mind-blowing show before getting new impressions. One quick bike rental enabled me to reach the corners of Kyoto, discovering the bamboo forests, the beautiful temples, and the delicious cuisine. I had to continue my journey, but Japan stole a piece of my heart, and I'm waiting for the opportunity to return and unfold even more layers of this magical country of the future. Dear Vietnam, I hope you're doing well. I still cannot grasp what you have been through, but look at where you are now. Thank you for showing me your beautiful nation. From the boat ride through the mountain ranges in Pa Bay, visiting caves and waterfalls, realize how small we are compared to Mother Nature, to the incredible patterns created by the rice fields in Sapa. Time stopped when I immersed myself in your beautiful landscape. The beauty of your scenery was matched by the hospitality of your people. When I opened my heart, so did you. As an outsider, it was hard to imagine that such a beautiful place was facing struggles much deeper than I could comprehend. While I felt at peace, your people were afraid to speak out against the developing issues, preventing them from achieving the same peace that I felt. The fascinating architecture of your ancestors reminded me of the power we can achieve as a collective. Vietnam, I do not know when I will be coming back, but I know I am. You have treasures yet to be discovered, issues yet to be discussed, and places yet to revisit. You're beautiful and fascinating despite your political issues and heavy tourism. I wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you for everything. Sincerely, Catherine. I visited Siem Reap to see the temples that everyone talked about, and I quickly discovered why. For a week I allowed myself to discover one of the world's biggest wonders. The signature temple Angkor Wat was swarmed by tourism, even during the monsoon season. But for me, it was just as big a part of the experience as all the other temples. I barely remembered to eat and did not realize how many hours I had biked from one table to another. As I was trying to comprehend what I was seeing, I met the people who were lucky enough to call this home. I couldn't believe that humans had built these so many years ago, and it was still here. Nature had started to show its power over mankind, but to this day, and many years ahead, Angkor is still standing strong, representing our human abilities. Sometimes, when human encounters were out of sight, I took my time observing the fascinating creatures around me. The monkeys especially caught my attention, and it wasn't just by stealing my water. They each had such character and personality, and their interactions with each other, with me, seemed so profound. Yes, it does sound silly when you say it out loud, but when they stared me deep in the eyes, I felt it. They say we are 99% monkeys. After extensive observation throughout my journey, I can now truly understand why. I didn't really know what to expect. I just had a feeling I was about to discover something fantastic. And I was right. A warm welcome was felt from the people walking around in lunges and with sunscreen made from a particular tree painted on their faces in various patterns. From the heavy influence of Buddhism spreading vivid colors of gold and red all over the country, to the traditional attire of the ethnic tribes. This country was full of color. I witnessed the impact of the monsoon greater than anywhere else when I spent my first days of Myanmar in the capital Yangon. As I was following the train tracks to the center, I could hear the rain coming towards me like a wave. As inconvenient as rain was for everyone, we all embraced it with a smile, standing together for hours waiting for the train to come. It was then that I felt the warmth heart of the Burmese people. I started heading north to trek through the beautiful landscape. Spending days walking along rice field, I made smiling faces from different ethnic tribes, all equally hospitable. I felt welcome, invited to see a bit of their lifestyle. After hours of trekking through the Burmese land, an old lady offered me an incredible home-cooked meal in her beautiful house. She had built it herself from the ground with the help of the village. Before I continued my journey, we took a break out on the porch, and language became insignificant to connect the bond between the two of us. All we had was Burmese cigars, tea, and laughter, and it was all we needed. After days of trekking, I arrived at Inle Lake. Though I can try to explain its allure, you can never truly understand it until you experience it on your own. With the wind in my hair and the sound of the boat cutting through the water, my senses were fully stimulated. As I was sailing across the lake, enjoying the scenery of the floating villages, the fishermen and the shore life, I imagined the stories secluded within. Growing up by the sea, sailing and fishing is deeply rooted within me. I was fascinated by the distinguishing technique of the fishermen at Inle Lake. In contrast with the loud fishing boats in the west, they were fishing so quietly, with such grace to prevent scaring off the fish. This was not just fishing, it was a talented act. Another night bus took me to Bagan, the city of pagodas. Like continuing mountain ranges, the horizon was covered in pagodas in all shapes and sizes. Myanmar holds many treasures, but the biggest of them all is the people. Everywhere I went, despite language barriers, I felt their hearts pumping out kindness beneath the skin. The tourism industry is growing fast, and Myanmar needs to be careful. If this starts becoming like Vietnam, this constant hospitality might vanish, and it won't be the same country I fell in love with. This place is truly a hidden treasure, and the government tries to keep it this way. As the flight was about to land, I discovered a small country hidden in the mountains. The air was so fresh. After weeks of absorbing this rich, colorful culture, constantly enhancing the feeling of peace, I have minimal insight. Much of what I could tell you can be said by looking at images of the unique architecture hidden in this breezy, cloudy landscape. All I know is that I felt at such peace here, and the people around me seemed to feel the same. The fact that the government prioritized the happiness of its people over economic growth seemed to be reflected in the aura around me. I really wanted to stay longer. I was just happy here, and I had barely started peeling the layers off the onion. On May 12, 2015, the second earthquake occurred in Nepal, with a magnitude of 7.3. Its epicenter was located in Dholaka district, destroying hundreds of thousands of homes, injuring thousands and killing hundreds. What was supposed to be a trip to hike the Annapurna circuit quickly changed into being a trip dedicated to fundraising money for rebuilding schools. After hours of driving and walking, I witnessed hundreds of thousands of collapsed homes. It was almost 3 months after the earthquake, yet the damages were vivid. New temporary homes had been built out of the rooftops, and utilities had been rescued from the destroyed homes. You could feel the sense of community, as life is not easy here, especially now. Everyone works together to combat the challenges they're facing on a daily basis. Despite all, their hearts were still big enough to make me feel welcome and a part of the community during my stay in Daira. I felt a sense of belonging during my time in the village. It didn't take many days before my host mom called me her daughter. Although my friend did the translation, I spent most moments connecting without words. It was time for planting the rice, which meant that the whole village was working together to do the hard job. I quickly discovered that rice planting was not my strongest side, as I took longer compared to the people in the village. They are all so skilled, collaborating together, each with their individual role. I was amazed by the hard work put into it, but ended up admiring from the distance to avoid disrupting the flow. These people are so tough, in mind and in body. They had to be. Looking from a distance, you cannot tell that an earthquake hit Charikot more than 3 months ago. This looks like another beautiful town, but beneath the surface, people are struggling with the physical and mental damages every single day. They've stopped waiting for help to come around and taken matters into own hands. The people are working together to make their life the best it can be, despite the damages. I was back in the capital, Kathmandu, and I started to discover the damages here as I spent my days walking around observing. Despite larger aid availability, a huge area in the middle of the city is made up of thousands of tents for the people left without a home. The juxtaposition of Kathmandu's biggest 5-star hotel in the background is leaving its mark when walking by this area. It does not seem fair that all these people have to live in tents during the monsoon while sleeping next to a spacious, luxurious hotel. Frequent tremors kept the people on their feet at all times. But despite the damages, the hope of making Nepal what it used to be was present at any encounter. People were still as hospitable as they are known for. The heritage was still breathtaking despite the damages, and like most of the places I visited during these 5 months, I was already eager to return. Back in Hong Kong, I started doubting if I'd stop loving traveling, if I'd become more attracted to the familiar and predictable lifestyle. But as soon as I started my journey, I knew that this was what I loved doing more than anything. Being exposed to the foreign in my attempt of gaining insight to an unfamiliar culture. Traveling to unpredictable places, not knowing what tomorrow would bring, and hopefully being able to benefit the people and the places I got exposed to. This was what I was meant to be doing. Although I was flying back to my birthplace, it remained a short transition. Morocco was waiting for me. The whole world was waiting. Many suffer from homesickness, but just like the famous Danish writer H.C. Andersen, I suffered from outsickness, and this is the time to embrace it. I went to explore an unfamiliar continent, to get familiar with the perks and the issues, so I can return to do more in-depth projects in the future that can eventually benefit others. Because in the end, the power of imaging is never more apparent than when it's used to help those in need.